Oh, how are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm so happy to be here, Siobhan. Thank
I
you for
know.
having me.
Oh, thank you so much for taking time. You have your family and your schedule. And what time is it where you are? Actually, where are you and what time is it? That would be
I'm
better start.
in I'm in California and it is 8:30 p.m. here.
Wow.
So yeah.
Amazing. And 1:30 p.m. here in Melbourne. It's actually a really nice cold day here. So I'm all rugged up, ready to chat and learn and hear all about your story.
I love it.
So
Let's
let's
do it.
let's get into it. Do you want to start by just telling people like a little bit about you? What you love, what you do, your family. Yeah, let's go.
Sure, yeah. I the number one thing about me is I love to make people laugh. That's been my part of
Yeah.
my identity like my whole life,
Hmm.
and with that, I ultimately became a professional comedian, doing stand-up comedy around the United States. And
Wow.
yeah, it was a wild ride. I phased out of it a little bit, and really been called towards more healing work, and
Hmm.
that's where I think it's going. Like I don't have like a practice yet. I haven't launched my program or anything yet, but we're in the works.
I
I'm
love
kind
it.
of, yeah, I'm going through this like huge transformational point in my life, and part of it is that transition from being so attached to
Hmm.
entertainment, um,
Hmm.
and comedy to exploring this other side of me that's always been prevalent and calling me, and tugging at me.
Hmm.
And now I'm like really sort of blossoming into it, and I get chills talking about it. When it's right, it's right.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm married to one of your other guests that you've
Yeah.
had. Uh,
Cassidy.
yes, Cassidy, that's the one, not Tom. Uh,
No.
and, and yeah, I love her dearly. She's my soulmate, my twin flame, and we
Hmm.
have twins.
Hmm.
They're like almost 3.5 years
Wow.
old, and a boy and a girl, and they are like, I always thought it was like so cheesy and untrue when people are like, I learn more from them than they learn from me. I was like, that's bullshit.
Oh, I
Uh,
hear this a lot, and I don't have kids, so please
I
tell
I
me.
thought it was schmaltzy,
Mm,
frou like, I sound like a really nice guy if I say this. And it's like, no, like, I mean, it's anything in life, but I think your children are your greatest mirror,
wow.
um, for you, and as well as your partner.
Hmm.
And I mean, I'm just in school with them, like, and my wife in terms of like healing, and like Cassidy and I, like our inner children just trigger each other, have triggered each other so much.
Yeah.
And yet I would never be anywhere else. I
Yes.
know, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and she says, yeah, we're each other's curriculum.
I
And
love that. I love
yes, me too. And it's work. It
that.
has been. Um,
Of
it
course.
is. It still is, of course, but like it is smoothed out tremendously since we've really delved back into our spirituality, and like opening our hearts,
Wow.
and doing the work, and facing each other, but more so facing ourselves, and
Hmm.
facing what's there, what's inside, and taking responsibility. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing. And I mean, it's not all work. We have a wonderful time too. We
No,
have
of
a lot of
course. But the
have a
fun
lot
stuff
of
is talking about the work.
It's true.
And this is what we all like, myself and Tom and you guys love talking about and love sharing. So,
Yes.
and this is what the show is all about, is kind of talking about the work. Do you reckon you guys like started that at the start of your relationship? I know obviously you mirror each other at the start, but do you reckon having the twins and your children kind of amplified it? Or do you reckon it was like just the journey from the start to having kids?
Well, it's interesting. It's, as most things are, it's up and down. It's not a straight line really, or a straight uphill.
Mm.
It, we started, part of the way that we started was, I met her at a comedy show.
Mm-hmm.
I was opening up for a comedian, and she was there to see him. Of course, nobody goes for the guy who starts out doing.
Hey, maybe.
Yeah, eventually we were starting to get there. But so, I met her. She was waiting in line. And as the guy who opens the show, you kind of stand off to the side after the show, and you hope that people remember you, and care enough to take a picture with you and post it on Instagram. And so she wanted to meet me after she met the big guy and got his autograph and everything, and then met me and took a picture. And
wow.
And I was immediately just like drawn to her. Like, I was like, I needed to be next to her. Like, it was which sounds very creepy if you're like,
you're a stranger, but I need you.
Yeah, it was an incredible sensation. Like, I was like, oh my God. And also, I mean, she was drunk. Like it wasn't like, oh, like it was like, oh, but it was like, huh. Like also, like she was drunk, but like, I was like, there's something going on here. Like, and then, so she posted our picture on Instagram. I was like, oh yes. Looked at the profile. She's got a boyfriend. I was like, whoa, okay. All right. I misread some things. Like
the drunkenness.
Right. Yes. But we, we maintained our our Instagram friendship, just like following each other. And I always remembered her. Like, I always was just like, gosh, that girl, like, I remembered her. Like, every time her picture would pop up, like on your little timeline, I'd be like, man, that girl. And then like a year later, I had noticed she posted a picture, and it was a type of picture where you're like, this person doesn't have a boyfriend. You don't put like whatever it was. I was like,
but it's the intuition. You just know.
Exactly. And then so I messaged her. We started messaging back, and so the reason why I tell you that whole backstory is like, as soon as we started like text messaging, I was like, this woman speaks my language. Like, there was just something. Her grandmother like had been ill at the time, and the way she was talking about it, like, I just knew. I was like, oh, she gets it. She gets energy. Like, there's this romanticism for her with the way of the world, and with the way that energy moves, and how we move through the world. And so I knew that about her. And, everything thereafter, like, we just kind of went deeper and deeper into these different roundabout ways into our spirituality. And like, we found this church, like Unity Church, that we really love, through somebody that she was taking care of, and like this 90-year-old amazing woman who's a patriarch of this church. And and it was a very different church. It was like very science of mindy and like manifestation, sort of, and based on A Course in Miracles, which is what my wife talks a lot about on Instagram. So and then when we had our children, I realized we had gotten so bogged down. We were so tired. It is amazing what tiredness does to you, and how sleep deprivation, it depresses you, and you don't even know it, like, until you're 6 months or a year in, and you're like, oh my God, I'm depressed because like I'm malnourished, like from this, sleep deprivation and everything. And so I remember like standing in the kitchen, I was like, wait a minute, what happened to our, like, we don't talk like we used to about like the magic of the world, like, and like our spirituality and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. I was like, what are we doing? We got to get this back. Like, that
Mm-hmm.
was like the foundation, you know?
Yeah.
And and then from there, not because of that conversation, but slowly and steadily from there, like we got back into it. Like, yeah, I started getting back into Taoism, which has always been a huge part of my, um, the backbone of my spirituality and my
Can you explain a bit more about what that is for people that don't know? Like maybe what the practice or, how you, embody it, I guess.
So, I mean, the Bible, for lack of a better term,
Mm.
of Taoism is the Tao Te Ching, or the Tao Te Ching, and it's basically, and what it means is like the way of things, and it's about the natural way, the natural path,
Mm-hmm.
and when we are on our natural path, that is when life flows.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get outside of that, when we act willfully,
Mm-hmm.
like uh, with more desire than flow,
Yeah.
then that is when things get haywire. That's when you meet roadblocks that you cannot get over or get through.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that was introduced to me when I was at university, and I was obsessed with American football. I was, I mean, talk about like desire, and it was irrational at that point. Like I had so many injuries,
Wow.
and what I've looked at in recent months is like, oh, that was part of how I felt love, was the admiration from my family for being
Yeah.
a good athlete, you know, and I had this teacher. Somehow ended up signing up for this Taoism class, and this teacher, Dr. Combs, he pulled me aside one day and he was like, "What is it with you in football?" And I was like,
Wow.
I'm meant to play it. Like, I'm meant for it." And he was like, "No, you're not." Like,
Oh wow, he like called you out. I love
totally.
it.
And he's
He's like,
like,
nah.
look at everything that's happened. Look at how difficult it is for you.
Wow.
Like, it doesn't need to be that way. Like,
Mm.
the universe is telling you, you aren't meant for that. You're meant for something else that's wonderful and great. And you're a great writer
Mm.
and whatever, you know. And that's where you are. That's where you're meant to be. And he gave me this assignment. Um, one thing with Taoism, and it was basically a class on like the Taoism and art.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were like studying like Taoism narratives in movies
Mm.
or songs, and if you look at any film, you can find like Taoist principles. Like, the one that I always remember is the film Russell Crowe, The Gladiator,
Mm-hmm.
where that guy was meant to be a warrior,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
that's what he was put. And in the beginning, he says, I'm done. I'm done being a general. I want to go home. I want to be a farmer. I want to be a family man. And it wasn't his way. And so when he forced that, everything went sideways. And
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, the way he redeemed himself and redeemed, the world around him, was going the natural path that for himself, which was to fight.
Yeah, it's such a good example as well for like, people being like, but how do you know when it's the right way or my way or the flow, or how do you know when it's not? And it's a kind of good way to explain it. It's like, well, is there roadblocks?
Right.
I had crazy amount of roadblocks blocks in Bali. But I'm like, but it's such a cool lifestyle and I really want to live here and it's so easy. And, I'm by the beach and it's always warm. And I just, it was like roadblock after roadblock. And they kind of, for me, they got bigger and louder and like more in my face until I'm like, okay, I'm out. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is the way of things, where the way the universe works. The universe will keep telling you the same thing over and over again. And it starts with little tugs and it gets bigger and bigger until it grabs you and flips you around and says, stop.
Yeah.
Go somewhere else. Yeah. Do it differently. Listen, look at this other thing that I'm presenting to you that you keep pushing away. Whatever it is. And for me right now, what I'm seeing is that it is delving more into healing work and my spirituality. And like, I've always been passionate about the human experience and exploring consciousness and spirituality. And now I'm in full go mode of like, what are we capable of?
I love it.
What are we capable of as we remove the blocks of the heart and the other chakras and allow spirit to just move through us? And it's wild. I mean,
it's crazy. And this is such a good segue to get into breath work.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously Cassidy's a facilitator and that's how I met her on my course. And obviously we've been in her classes together online, which has been incredible. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your breathwork story, your first session? Talking about spirit and chakras and
Oh yeah. So, I mean, Cassidy, when she first started, it was like, I'm going to go do this thing. And and it's with one of your friends from high school. She teaches it. I'm like, huh? What? I think I've seen some posts about that. You're going? You met her once. Okay, you're going. Bye. And then she's like, yeah, I just, me and 20 other strangers, we laid in the sand on the beach and just screamed and cried and breathed. And I was like, oh, what?
That's it.
What is that? And then and it just blew my mind. It intimidated me. I was so curious, but at the same time, I was like, not that I'm the most macho dude in the world, but I was like, oh, crying on a public beach, and screaming. Yeah. I'm not comfortable with that right now. But again, we push the ego. Just when the ego is saying, no, don't look over there. Don't go there. That's now I just know it as okay, goodbye, step aside. I'm going, I need to go there. If you don't want me there, ego, then
that's where I'm going.
That's where I'm meant to, that's where I heal. And, so eventually she went to David Elliott, where she met you, thank goodness. And she came back and she wanted to do it for me. And I was like, okay, all right, let's just try this out. And and so the first time I did it, it was I was laughing a lot. And looking back, I know that was resistance.
Yeah. That's really good awareness, by the way, because some people are like, oh, I just laughed the whole session. And you kind of need to know, is the laughing resistance and kind of taking you away from going in?
Yeah, and I wasn't ready. And Cassidy, I think, broached that. She was very delicate about it. Didn't want to put any judgment, but at the same time was like, interesting. I was like, I don't like when you do that.
I don't like when you study me.
I don't like when you know me too much. Yeah. But I knew that, I wasn't ready to admit that at that time, because to me, again, like, even when you asked me to introduce myself, like first thing out is like, I'm funny. I like to be funny. Like, and I've always used it as a healing mechanism, like my whole mantra during my comedy journey has been, when we're laughing, we're perfect. Like you're, at least, I'll say you're perfectly present, like you're so in the moment. There's no worry. There's nothing. Like it's just pure elation, and it's a way of just being fully present, which is the only place where the magic happens, and so I wasn't ready to say like, oh, that was some blockage or whatever, some resistance. And now that I understand and am willing to look at how I've used humor, while I've definitely used it as a gift and in a positive way, I believe, in a loving and healing way, it's also become a defense mechanism, surely in some ways. And so I recognize that, because like I would go, like I'd like be laughing and then like crying, and I'd be like, what's that? and then like there was some color stuff going on and things like that, and I could tell at the end, like Cassidy was like, she was like not fully satisfied, like it's and like what I mean?
I get that, by the way.
And look, and this is also like was her first time like outside of the training in New Mexico with David. Like this was her first time facilitating like outside of that. And so, but she was still like incredible. But I think there was maybe a little bit of like, I really wanted you to freak out and like lose it. But she also knew that, hey, this is your first time, and we'll see.
It's a journey.
We'll see who's laughing next time you do it. And so then the next time, she intuitively brought in like the imagery of spirit animals. And like they just instantly show like there's that moment of like where your mind is active and you're like, yeah, right, like spirit animals are gonna show. Oh, hi dolphin. like there's a dolphin and then a lion and then like a majestic elk or something. Like and I just started crying, because I recognized them as my spirit animals and as people from my life as well. And because that was a big part of my story and my journey too, is like I suffered a lot of loss about 10 years ago. My brother passed away at the age of, I think it was like 46 or something. And basically from alcoholism. And then 5 months after that, my mother passed away from cancer. And then like 2 months after that, my dog died, which isn't the worst in the, like hierarchy of things, but like that was the one where it was like, oh, come on. Like, you're just like, really? Like, this is gnarly. Like, and, so with that, there's such a big part of my life, they like my brother was my absolute best friend. And my mom was my absolute best friend and rock and like everything, my confidant and just everything. And then, and so when they were like suddenly gone, and it was a lot. And, but the gift of it is that they are more present and more accessible in the deepest of ways than ever before when they were confined to a body, and so with that, here comes, my mom is like a majestic elk, and here's my brother as a dolphin, and like I just recognized them immediately. It was wild. And then the next time I did it was the gnarliest thing I've ever experienced. This was
your third session?
This was my third session, and they were spaced out, over a period of time. I wasn't like, oh, like I was like, oh, we got to do it again. But it's like how in my past, like mushrooms has been where I was like, okay, that was majestic and magical and enchanting. And I don't need to do that right away, again.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was processing for me too, and like
Integration, yeah.
And so my brother, I was sitting, this was this past January, and I was sitting on the bed with Cassidy, and I had been going through a lot. I actually think I had COVID. It's not confirmed, but I swear to God, I was sick for 5 weeks, and
wow, and you didn't know what it was.
No, and the doctors were like, "Oh yeah, you've got like a cold or whatever, like a really bad cold," but it was exactly what everybody talks about, when it's like, oh, the antibiotics fought it off for like a week, and then when you were done, everything came back full blast. I couldn't get rid of it, and so I hadn't been that sick for 15 years because I remember that because at that time in my life, 15 years ago, I was living alone or living with like my buddies, that I grew up with, but we were like post college and like just, they weren't the most tender and nurturing, when you got sick. And so like I remember I had this horrible sinus infection. It was like fully blocked. Like I looked like a Neanderthal, because it was so impacted, in my brow, and I was crying. It hurts. I have a very high pain tolerance, and I was crying because it hurt so bad. And I remember calling my mother, who lived like 30 minutes away, and just like asking her to like come and take care of me.
Yeah.
And I was just crying, just bawling. And so when I got this sick again, it brought back all of that. And I felt my mom really present with me, and I just needed to like get it out. And this grieving it's another thing that's not linear, and it's not a straight line. It's here it comes. All right, we're cool. Oh, here it comes again. And I think that is in part until you really fully heal it, and fully feel it.
Yeah.
And at that time in my life, there was so much going on. I mean, I couldn't feel everything. Like I wasn't capable of tolerating that much loss and pain at that time all at once. And so this sickness, like I knew it as like grieving my mother. And like messages were coming through like from my mom and through my mom and things like that of like, that I'm okay and that I've got this, and like she's with me, but I can do this now. Like like I can handle all of this. I can handle this ailment, this sickness. And I can handle being a father of two wacky, wonderful children, and being a husband to an extremely strong and wonderful woman. And I can handle pursuing my dreams and living them out, and I can handle all that. And that was kind of the message. And so I felt like, okay, I'm dealing with this, and I'm starting to feel better. And then like I got sick again, and I was like, well, what is this shit? Like, and then like I was like, I did it. I did the work. What are we doing? Like, and then I was sitting on the bed, and I don't know why. I don't know the significance of this exactly, but this was the end stages of this sickness. And every day at 11 a.m., it would come back. I would be feeling fine. And then at 11 a.m. for 7 straight days, I got this terrible pain right here. And I was like, what is this? Like, and I am a huge believer in this is a manifestation of something emotional.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, what the hell? And so in this moment where I realized this is happening at 7 a.m. or at 11 a.m. every day, this is emotional. What happened in January of, like of ever, like what happened at this time of day or this time of year? Because I had been injured, actually, I got thrown off a horse. It's a different story for a different time. Like the year before, and it really hurt my back. Like I really injured myself, and I was like linking that, and I was like, something's up. Like something is going on with me, and I started crying. Like, and I started crying on the bed, and like Cassidy, like I mean, not like, oh, I'm okay, like it was like, oh, here it comes. Like it was uncontrollable crying.
I call it ugly crying.
Ugly crying. Ugly crying. And like, and I'm a man who's perfectly cool with crying, but it was, I've never cried like that. And like, and so she's like, lay down. And she just immediately went into breath work with me.
Yes.
I know. God bless her. Like she is such an incredible healer. I mean, she just is. And, that is her dharma, and that is everything that she is called here to be. And like, it just, spirit moves through her, and it's incredible to be on the receiving end of it. And so she laid me down, and I went into the breath work, and like, essentially I experienced my brother being sick.
Really?
Yes, when I was crying, I sounded like he sounded when he when he was so sick. He was sick and deteriorating essentially over 2 years from like liver and kidney failure, and and just withered, the strong, handsome man, like just withered away, to like skin and bones. And like, he was so sharp, and he he started to lose his mind a little bit. And like, I remember, what it sounded like, him crying. And like, I mean, and I didn't remember it until I was doing it. And like, and I felt myself releasing and relieving all of this pain that he had experienced. And, Cassidy guided me, like, and told me basically, as I'm still in the breath work, like, what colors do you see? And like, it was like, like, okay, I see orange and I see blue. Okay. Like, which one is yours and which one is Michael's? And I was like, okay, that's weird. Yeah, but it was perfect. It was perfect. And like, and it was like, all right, blue is my brother and orange is me. And then I was like, and I had like a rationale, I think, so it was the mind that was doing it. And then I was like, wait a minute, no, it's not. It's different. And like, this is what I relate to, and this is what he relates to. And then I was like, oh my God, we're the same. We're the same. And at that time, I was also dealing with a lot with my son, who was only 2.5 at the time. And I was carrying all this like guilt and worry and these attempts to control, because he was acting out a lot, and I was really worried about him, and I didn't know what to do for him, and I didn't know how to help him. And through the breath work and through all the crying, my son came in too, like, in the experience. And I was the three of us were linked. And I was so afraid that Michael did not get to live his fullest potential. He was unhappy and he drank himself to death. And I am afraid of living a life where I don't, at that time at least, I was very in this fear of living a life that I don't feel satisfied what I know I can be or what I think I'm meant to be and all that.
Yeah.
And then there was my son, who I was feeling like I don't want him to feel this suppression, my brother had all these gifts and things, but he didn't have the tools to remove the blocks. And so Cassidy, then she's like, you have a choice. We can do lineage healing. You can heal on behalf of your brother if you think he needs that. She's like, but ask him. And so again, the mind is involved, and I ask him, and I'm expecting him to say like, yeah, I need this, like, please and thank you. And he's like, I got this. And so I was done with it.
Wow.
And flash forward to like the next day, and my son was doing something crazy and dangerous, climbing something, jumping off of something like he does. There I am trying to control and protect and things like that.
Right.
And he said, I got this. And, yeah. And I was like, wow. Okay. Yeah, I get it. Like,
yeah.
And wow. That's the way it works. Like,
wow. It's so, thank you so much for sharing all of that, by the way, because that's,
I know it's a lot.
It's so no, this is the point, because people are like, but how can the breath do that? And how can you feel and see? And it's like, just connection and being open and surrendering. And talking about the grieving, it always comes because my grandma passed away about 4 years ago, but she brought me up like as kind of a second mom along with my mom, because my mom was a single parent. And every time I breathe, it comes through. It's like, hey, it's okay to still grieve me and still cry, because I didn't do it properly at the time, because like you said, I had so much going on, to the point it's like, okay, I'm just going to put it all into one and like cry a little bit, but then deal with this situation, and then cry and then deal. So, during breath work, I still cry about her, but I'm like, hey, it's okay. Just do it. Do what needs to be released. And, ugly cry with love. It's okay. That was the message I always get. It's okay to still do that. Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really hard to to really explain that to people, to just be like, hey, come and breathe. It's okay. These spirits might come in if you're open to it. And, at the end, when people share with me, they're like, look, this might sound weird. And I'm like, hey, nothing sounds weird. And people do have that. They're like, I just felt like this presence. And I know it was like my grandma or my mom or my dad. They just know. And that's what's so powerful, because you're just connecting and you're being really open through breath work. Yeah.
Yes. And, I believe that what I've come to believe, like through all of this, and because now I breathe on a daily basis. We all do, but I do breath work on a daily basis. I actually do the Wim Hof method, and got very, involved in that and committed to that part of my practice. And it's different, certainly, than my experience, like in a guided breath work, like the pranayama breath, but it's still like, there's some consciousness delving and things like that. But what I've really come to is like, breath is spirit, and it's, think about it. Anytime, like, people are like, just calm down, just breathe, just breathe.
Oh,
And it's like, why does that work? Like, it works. Like, and when some of the best advice I've gotten is like, even before I started with the Wim Hof, was like, hey, when you wake up in the morning, just take 10 deep breaths. Like,
yes. Yeah.
like before you pick up your phone, before you do anything, just take 10 deep breaths. And like, and I do that, and like, and it changes my day. And like, I can be so tense, like, and like, maybe Cassidy and I are like, bumping heads a little bit, and I'll be like, I'm gonna go breathe and do my thing, and like, because it's that time of day anyways. And then I come out, and like, she's talked about like, there's like just such a shift, like when you come out, it's like, yeah, because I've dropped the bullshit, and like, and but yeah, like, that breath is your spirit. It is drawing in spirit and energy and life force. And it's what lets me know too, like, as long as somebody has a breath to take, there's a chance. There's a chance for anything, for a miracle, for anything, because it's that easy. Like, we think, so many of us, I'll speak for myself, I have thought at times like, oh God, I'm so far down this road, and I'm so like in a rut right now, and like, it's going to take this and this to get back on track, or to get holy again, or whatever you think you need to do, like, to get grounded again, whatever the case is. And it's like, no, you just make a choice right now. And like, and it just changes everything. Like, it doesn't mean that there's not still work to do, or things to dig through. There always will be, that's why we're here.
Exactly. It's so true. And going from breath work, obviously, Cassidy introduced me to cacao. Do you want to share your story with that and your first experience with cacao?
Yes, I would love to. I love Mama Cacao.
Same.
Oh my gosh, what a gift. Like, I was first introduced to it when a friend of mine, Christian, he asked me to facilitate a blessing way, a father's blessing way. Now, so a blessing way, for anybody who doesn't know, is it's the indigenous people of the Americas, like, they would do it as a rite of passage for the women, and bringing them into motherhood. And so somebody introduced that to us when we were, having our children for Cassidy. And at that point, Cassidy was like, well, Beau should have one. And so they did one for me, and like, the men did it for me, and like, and it was very nice. It was lovely. And it was like, it's just really like, just all the men just talking to you about what what it's like to be a dad, and what you may need, and like, honoring you, taking care of you, and things like that, like
so
washing your feet and things like that. Like, it was, and so there's that intimacy, and like that. Yeah, it was very powerful. And so friend Christian asked me to do this, and I was like, so what does this look like for you? I'd never led anything like this. And he's like, let's get some cacao. And I'm like, yeah, definitely. Let's get some. What is cacao? And so I had to like look it up and like research it. And, I was so committed to like giving him what he wanted. And also like, I was reaching out to the other men that he was like, oh, invite this guy. Can you invite this guy? And, I'd love for this guy to be. And nobody responded, and nobody could come. So it was just me and Christian. And I got my hands on some cacao in a hurry, some ceremonial grade cacao. At that time, it was Firefly. And we did it. Like, and the first time I took a sip, I started buzzing, like I was like, like I felt lightheaded, and like, hey, this is really something. Like, this is a thing.
Yeah.
And And so we sat there, just the two of us, and we lit some candles and played some cool music and like just sat, and like across from each other and like started talking about fatherhood and his journey and what was coming up for him as far as like, from his heart. And I mean, it I knew, like, he had told me that, yeah, like it's something that like it helps you, like it's a heart opener. I'm like, okay, what, like Advil? I don't know, like, like I don't know, and like, but I was like, okay, a heart opener. Like I felt like, oh, that's like the frou like thing that you say about it, but like,
Yeah.
what's actually, I don't know what it actually what actually happens or what it actually feels like, and then like I was much more able to speak from my heart and speak
Yeah.
clearly and
Yeah.
like from like just the truest, most knowing and loving place, and like and it was just this beautiful experience. And then, God, like a year later, Cassidy has got another wild adventure she wants to go on, and it's like, oh, don't be mad. I want to go to Guatemala for 10 days. I'm like, could you not? Like, she'd done her, she had done her yoga teacher training in Bali. That was the first thing. And that was like, what are you doing? You like, I thought she was having a quarter life crisis.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, she's gonna lose her mind. She's never coming back. Like, and that's all my stuff. That's all my ego stuff.
Yeah.
That came up immediately. And soon after, while there was still some like, so you're sure about this, right? Like there was still some of that, but I trusted her. I knew, and when I allowed myself to get deep down into it, into my heart, I was like, I know, I know, I know you have to go. And like, and I knew she had to go to David Elliott, and I knew she had to go to Guatemala. And like, I'm always like, are you sure? Like, and then as soon as she says yes, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
like, let's do it. Like, and it doesn't mean that along the way I don't get stressed out by it. Like I sure as heck do. But yeah, so when she came back, like, I mean, we just started drinking cacao like crazy. Like I made it a part of my daily practice, and it is that and breath work is the backbone of my daily self-care.
Same.
And and I've been thinking too, like it's so much deeper than self-care. Like self-care is a beautiful thing, but like it's like soul work. It's like soul play. You know what I mean? Like
it's like, definitely more play. Yeah.
Yes. Like, I mean, the stuff that comes through, like I mean, when Cassidy first started, like came back from Guatemala and started talking about Mama Cacao, I was like, wow, she's really into this stuff.
Like, who are you? I do the same thing. I like talk to it in the morning, and Tom's like, who is this? And I like whisper into my cup, and he's like laughing at me, and I'm like, just you wait, you'll be with me in a couple of months. My intention in the morning. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. But now, like, that is such a big part of my relationship with Cacao, is seeing her as this mother figure, nurturing figure that's going to sit with me and be the medicine. Like it's plant medicine. It is medicine. Like, and it opens my heart and allows things to flow into it that like I didn't know were there. It helps me tap into things. It helps me remove the blocks. And like, that's another thing where like, I've been like Cassidy and I in the kitchen, and it's like, and I'm like, all right, I'm going outside. I'm doing my cacao thing. And like midway through, I'm like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Got it. Like I'm being a jerk and like, and this is my inner child and blah, 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 and whatever the lesson or the message is.
Mm.
But it's always like, brings me into that heart space where you just know what's the truth and what's your ego and what's BS and whatever.
Mm.
And I love it. But seeing it as personifying the cacao has been a huge piece for me in that what I've recognized because when I do, sit with my cacao, like, and I begin by honoring cacao and mama cacao and what I've realized fairly recently is like, oh, you're me and I'm you. And like what it's that idea of like what I see in you, it's namaste, right? Like this is the light in me recognizing the light within you. Mm-hmm. Right. And like, and I had that epiphany the other day, like as I was like honoring mama cacao, I was like, I was like, oh my God, that's what I am. Like I am that too. All I need to do is awaken to it and allow it. I don't have to find it. I don't have to search for it and whatever. Like all I have to do is open up and be it and allow it because it's already there. And like, the way that, I don't know, just with cacao, it's like the strength of surviving through the generations, the grace with which it just grows and exists, and the fact that it is service just by being, just by existing, it is doing so much. And that is what I am here to recognize in myself and what I believe we're all here to recognize in ourselves. And this is also Taoism. You don't have to like, it doesn't mean lay on your couch and like
and watch Netflix.
Exactly. But it means you don't have to strain so hard and bend over backwards. Like you don't have to do anything to earn your birthright. Like,
we had a conversation about this last night. Me and Tom were talking about like how you like have to, the feeling of earning, like, oh, I've earned my end of my day. Like I've earned what I'm doing. I've earned the rest. Yeah. It's interesting to say that.
It's such a trick. It's like, the ego just, it will play so many tricks on you and look, like in our defense, we learned it. We were taught it as babies and maybe even in the womb, like you don't know where it came from, but you were taught all of the things you believe about yourself. Like, you were taught all that, all the ways, all the things that you think you need to do to be loved or to be enough. And it's all.
And this is how we recognize it, through breath work, cacao, our relationships. This is how it all, kind of ties into everything. And this is why we love this work, I guess, because it's like, hey, this is who I am, why I'm this person, why I'm triggered, why I'm going this way, why I'm attached, and the same as me and Tom, it's like nonstop conversations about, about things like this and the mind. And when we argue, I'm like, is that your ego? Is that your inner child? It's never like a full-on argument where it's just like, oh, it's like, wait a minute. And then it's like analyzing each other.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
We do the same thing. And what a gift to be able to have those conversations, with your partner. Like you live with this person who you get to talk about the stuff, like not the stuff of the world. You talk about that too, I'm sure. You do. But like, again, I keep saying it, but like the magic and like, ooh, what's this? Ooh, I just, what came through today? Oh my God. You know what came through today? Like maybe this is happening because of this and blah, blah, blah. And
and they're not like, are you weird? we're just weird together. So yeah, I always say that this is why we're like, we should record more of our conversations, because people would be like, man, these guys are on something. we're on cacao. We're on cacao.
Right.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, which I could just talk to you forever about this stuff, Cassidy actually told me to ask you about it. So I'm going to ask you about it. We were talking before about the kind of masculine and feminine and the roles, and you said you love it. And I just want to let you talk about it before we finish. How did you get into kind of learning more about that?
Yes, I do love it. I really got in touch with it when I went to, and by it, I mean sacred masculinity, I'll call it, right? Which we can say that that's the opposite of toxic masculinity, right?
Yep.
I got in touch with all of that. I've known for years, like, that I needed to get in touch more with my masculinity. I didn't know exactly what that meant. Like, I knew that it meant just like getting back to like being more physical, which is kind of like part of the stereotype, but like using my body, using my hands, like building, creating more, just being more self-sustaining, basically, like less lazy. It meant a lot of things to me, looking people in the eye and connecting and like, and which to me is just part of integrity, and character. And so I knew that for years. And as a comedian, like I would rant constantly about like, I called it, and this probably would get me canceled if I cared. But like I called it the Pussification of America, like, because I felt we were all being trained to, or conditioned to, be more feminine, which, being in touch with your feminine side is a beautiful thing. It's an important thing. We are, no matter who you are masculine and feminine. You have both sides to you. But being born as a man, I know that there's certain things that I feel I'm called to explore in this lifetime while I'm a dude. And to fulfill that role. Now, so there's getting in touch with your femininity, the divine feminine, and then there's like setting aside your masculinity, and that to me is not what we're called to do. What I'm called to do, I can speak for myself, and I do believe that it's an issue in society, and so where I really came to understand what divine or sacred masculinity means, I went to Sacred Sons. Sacred Sons is a group of men that they're mostly based out of San Diego, but they're expanding and they're pretty international at this point and growing all the time. And they are all about brotherhood and exploring what sacred masculinity is, and finding different ways to do that. So part of that is being in touch with your emotions and being able to talk about them and being able to do the work to heal. And they do all we had a cacao ceremony at Sacred Sons. The part that, I'll be honest, I was like most intimidated going into was like, we had to wrestle. We had to wrestle another man.
Yeah.
And like,
that's great.
It is great. And it scared the shit out of me, because we're taught to avoid conflict, to avoid being physical. That's not honored in our society. And look, violence, there's no need for violence, but to use our bodies and in this amazing way. His name is Trevor Spring is the man that facilitated this, and it's his program called Wild and Wise. and he starts you off with a partner, a sparring partner, and honestly, at first, you're like mirroring each other, and then you're like dancing almost with each other, and like, all right, like move with one another and don't lose contact and just follow each other. And like,
Wow.
and look, grade 11 me is like, like,
yeah, you can tell people would be like, what the fuck? But
right, because again, what are we taught? What are we conditioned?
Yes, exactly.
And here's the thing, is that, and what this does is what Sacred Sons and programs like it do is what we've done in society is we have eliminated ritual. We've eliminated rite of passage, and or much of it, and a lot of when more organized religion came in, it wiped out a lot of the pagan traditions and a lot of the rites of passage. And nobody taught me anything really directly about being a man.
Yeah, Tom says the same. And we talk about it too. Like, if we were to ever have kids, it's like when they hit this age, it's like, where is it? I don't know if you've heard of Ben Greenfield.
I know that name.
Yeah, he's kind of like a fitness guru, but talks a lot about, he has twin boys actually. And he talks a lot about rite of passage and how he's going to send his twins into the wild to kind of survive. And, and I was like, wow, like that where is that in Australia? Where is it? I feel like in Scotland, they're kind of like, they're really tough anyway. They're like, go out and be a man and it's up to you now. Whereas I think Australia is very similar to America, where in terms of like, there's no like, okay, you're a man now, let's go.
Right.
I can only speak from what I've heard. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You're a man because you turned a certain age.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like that's it. There's no guidance, and what you learn from just watching people. Now we're so far removed from it. My father, I love him to death, of course, but he acts very frequently and consistently from his inner child, from his hurt little boy. He was hurt as a little boy, and he wasn't initiated into masculinity, sacred masculinity. And so what we have, I believe that the issues in the world that we see are a result of boys running the world. That's what happened. Like, look at it, like because that's what happened. Like because when you are not an initiated male, you don't act from the heart. A masculine, true, and again, I say masculine, and that is triggering for some people because they quickly go to toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
That's an oxymoron. Yeah. You cannot be toxic and truly masculine. True masculinity is being a heart-led man, right? And when you are not, you operate from your second chakra, which David Elliott talks a lot about. I've learned a lot from studying his books and things like that. Like, that's where that and your third chakra, like in the solar plexus and the sacral chakra, like this is where like your obsession with power comes from, and power through money, power through sexuality, through those are the big ones. I agree. But it's like, it's trying to get love from those places. Yeah. So if I'm trying to access love through power, through money, through sexuality, I think that's the result of, or that results in what we see in a lot of our failed leadership. And I see it on both sides of whatever political spectrum exists. Like, it's, I look forward to the day where There are the divine feminine and the sacred masculine are the ones that are making more decisions and guiding us more, from a leadership position in a bigger way, nationally and globally.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said that you were thinking about doing like a healing journey or program, or is this something that you would include in it? Because you sound like you're really passionate about it.
Yeah, thanks for seeing that. This is part of what I want to help others, because one thing that one thing that I said at Sacred Sons, and it made me emotional then, and it makes me emotional now, is that if my brother had such a program in his life, he'd still be alive.
Mm.
I mean, look, I know everything happens exactly as it's meant to, but when I went to Sacred Sons, I don't know exactly how it happened, but my heart opened.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed everything. And it was a process leading up to it, like a month or two before it was that breathwork experience where, I felt my brother and everything and everything before it, everything just builds to the next thing, there's no real going backwards. And so everything up until my experience with the Sacred Sons was leading up to that, and now we're building up to the next thing that's happening. And yeah, so to be able to give that to people, I want that for men. I want to. There's so many lone wolves out there, and I see it in myself, and I see it in so many of my friends as we've grown up. Like, we get married, we have children, and that's our life, and that's our world. And we need each other. Men need men, and men need women, and women need women, and women need men. We all need each other. Like, it's all purposeful. It's all balance. Like Taoism, yin. Like, it's all just balancing each other out. One doesn't fully thrive or exist as it's meant to without the other.
We said that, we actually said that in our conversation. I think it was this morning while I was having cacao, and we were talking about connection and community. We're not meant to be alone. Like, we're meant to have those people around us in our community, and we're all meant to be connected and together. It's not we're not meant to be lone wolves. We're meant to have that kind of those people around us, and that's how we were brought up. I'm not sure where it came from, that we're all like, hey, you're on your own in this. And I don't know what the quote is, but it's something along the lines of, your hurt kind of becomes the message that you give to others. And like you said about your brother, and you now going into this and sharing it with others. And it was very similar for me with breath work. I couldn't believe that people didn't know that they could heal themselves through their breath. And it helped me with like my past betrayals and self-worth and boundaries and things with family. And through discovering that, I'm like, why, if I had this when I was a teenager, my life would be dramatically different. Although I love the steps it's gone to get me there. But I'm like, if I could just help that one person through a breathwork session completely change how they think about themselves and how they look at others and how they treat themselves, it would be just, it would be a game changer, which I guess is what you're going to be doing for men.
Yes. No, and you're so right. I mean, I think, what you say is so poignant for me too, like in that when you do heal that one person, and I know it's more than that, but for example, as you said, just like that one person, that sends ripple effects. Like at Sacred Sons, there were group healing like that we were doing, right? And so basically without divulging anybody's personal experiences, like,
Yeah.
somebody would sort of step into the middle and then they would receive this sort of treatment from the group. We would all hold space for this person.
Wow.
And I never went into the middle and received that. Like, not everybody did. And I didn't feel called to, but I healed through it. Like, I felt it, and it did things to me, and it opened my heart, like, and healed me. Like, even though I hadn't been through what that person had been through exactly, like, it shocked something into me that was like, I mean, it was energetic, like, and it was just like that's the key, man, to everything, is like, just heal yourself, and do your best to help somebody else. But first we got to heal ourselves. And that's the work that we're doing. And it leads to us being able to help others. And that's how we get to all these things that we talk about on Facebook and Instagram and and in politics and whatever.
Yeah.
That's how we get. Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's funny you said that, because when I did the course with Cassidy, there was 44 of us in a circle, and we had to kind of share like either what we wanted to release, or kind of just like our story, like that kind of core belief or that core release. And there was 44 in a circle, and I think I was like number 30, and I've just taken on everyone's energy. Like, everyone was crying, and the time it got to me, I'm like bawling. I couldn't even talk. I don't even know what I said. And the tears, because I just like opened, and I had, but I healed through everyone else talking. And it was so funny. I think I was just such a mess from hearing everyone's amazing like healing stories. And then the time all of us had done, we were all just like a mess, crying, healing, and letting go. And it was just so like, it was just transformational stuff, and doing that with groups is just, it's really beautiful. So I'm so excited to see where you're going to go with this and what you're going to do. Do you have like a plan, or you're just going to see what happens?
I'm actually going to study with David Elliott in a couple weeks, October 17th. And I'm thrilled for that.
So good.
Yeah. So that's a big piece for me, is doing that. And actually, I decided to do that. I knew that it was time when I was at Sacred Sons, and I was like, whatever opened up, and I was like, I'm going, and I'm doing that. And
wow.
And I started listening. Cassidy, of course, put like, I was like, where are his books? Do you still have his books? Like, I need to read.
I've got them too.
Healer and Healing. And she's like, oh, let me see your phone, and just put them on Audible. And like, I started driving the next day, and it just started playing in my car. And I was like, oh, cool. I had no intention of starting this now, but I hear you, universe. Here we go. And I started crying immediately. Like it wasn't even, yes, like I have a lot of interesting similarities, like synchronicities with his story. But I don't know. I just recognized this voice as my teacher. Like, and it was just flowing out of me. I was like, oh man, here we go. Like, it was crazy. And so I'm signed up for October 17th, and I'm excited. It's intimidating to me a little bit too,
it's the best thing you'll do. It's so life-changing. I'm very excited for you to do it. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's like, it's daunting. Like, I'm so excited, but it's also like, oh man, this is going to kick my ass.
It will.
Exactly. Like, just, okay. Like,
I'm ready.
Let's saddle up, and like, what's going to come up? I and like every time I go into breath work, like, I don't know what it's going to be. And then something shows up, and I was like, I didn't even know you were there.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's why I love it. I'm always like, what are you going to show me today? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing, that it's like, I went to, therapy for like when my mom passed away. I started going like 2 weeks before she passed away.
Oh, wow.
And I went for 10 years until I went to Sacred Sons and decided that, oh, I want to do other things. I want to explore other things. And
Mm.
like like the therapy was amazing. It was so valuable. And I went for 10 years, and I wouldn't trade it. But I came to understand afterwards that there are things that you cannot access with your mind, and that never fully occurred to me. Like I knew that, like, oh, things lock up in your body and things get stored in your body and trauma is there and blah blah, but I didn't know that I couldn't get to things with just my mind. And like I discovered, like, 5 years into therapy, oh, I need to love myself more. Like there's, like I need more self-love. Got it. And I mean, I would journal about it all the time. Like,
Yeah.
it haunted me. Like as a comedian, like I would have to journal every time before I went on stage, like basically like you're good enough and you are love and you are a shining light. And like, and I had to like remind myself that like that I'm called to do this. I'm meant to do this. I'm good at this. And like, and just go up and be free. Cause I always knew that if I could be free, the sky was the limit and I would connect with every single person. But if I was blocked, I wouldn't. And so I'd just be like, all right, like all these affirmations. And like, and eventually, and 5 years after that, like, I'm like, when can I stop with the affirmations, man?
Like journals.
Like I gotta, like, it's like that movie Memento. Like where I'm like, I've got to remind myself every day of the shit I learned yesterday. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
and so I could write about it and talk about it and think about it forever. Love yourself more. But I couldn't feel it until I opened my heart and like, and then every other part of my body, like an energy center. And like, and now I love myself. I have way more access, much easier and open access to my self love. Stuff comes up and I get jostled and I get triggered. But the more you work, the more you do the work, the more accessible and easier it is, to just slip right back into like, oh yeah, that's not my truth.
Yeah, it's so true. It allows you kind of to recognize it, and you have the tools to like go inward and be like, okay, I know where that came from.
Right.
Yeah. And it's so funny because when I look back, I'm like, oh, wow, that would have taken me like a good couple of weeks to be like, what are you doing? And now I'm like, seconds. It kind of shortens that space, I guess. That's what it does. You're just like, okay, I can get on with my life. That came from here, came from there, not my heart. Okay, let's get back to it.
Big time. Wow. Absolutely. That's the truth. Yeah. It shortens that reaction time of like, yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much, Beau. Where can people find you, and where can they find this program when it comes out? I want to sign up.
I'll turn you into a man. I'm at Beau Bowker on Instagram. That's a good way to find me. I have a podcast with my wife, Cassidy, and our friend and fellow stand-up comedian, and somebody else who's on the journey of healing as well, Jeffrey J. And it's called The Hippy Dippy Show. And we broadcast it we post it on YouTube, and it's, wherever else you can, as a video podcast. And then you can also, get it on wherever, iTunes, whatever you do. But I at Beau Bowker.
Cool. Oh,
That's what,
thank you so much. I'm so excited for this journey, and we'll need to get you back on here when this program's kicked off, and you can tell us
yes.
how it's going and yeah, the progress with it. But yeah, is
I
there
can.
anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Just my gratitude. This is, it's funny because, like last night I was like, you're okay. So Cass, you are like a cacao facilitator, practitioner lady, and you facilitate breath work. And then today I was listening to the one you did with the lovely Tom, and I was like, that guy wrote 4 books.
Yeah.
And then and then you got Rick, right, from Keith's Cacao, and I was like, and I'm in transition, and you know what I mean, like I'm moving from this thing to this thing, and so yeah, like a little bit of that imposter syndrome comes up, like where it's like, oh, like am I, why am I talking? Like, but I, as you can see, have so much passion about all of this stuff. And so I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me this time and space and platform to connect with you and connect with your audience. And you're just wonderful. So
and so are
thank you.
you. Thank you so much. And can I just say, I've recorded like 20 shows, and this has been my longest show ever.
No. Is that okay?
So, talking about that, you have so much to share and so much to give other people. So, there you go. And it being in transition, I feel like people will relate way more to that than people that are doing things, because there's so many people out there in transition, and we've all been through that. And to be honest, it's such a really cool phase. I remember going from like full on hardcore sports coach into like breathwork and cacao, and it was beautiful. You got to enjoy the journey. So wherever people are like in their journey, they'll relate to something. And that's the whole point in the storytelling and the show. So thank you. And thanks for being my longest show yet. I'm really excited.
I hope that's okay. Thank you.
This proves you have a lot to share. So I love it. So thank you so much, Beau. And yeah, I'm excited for this program and to share it. And yeah, let's change the world.
Let's do it. And thank you. Thank you for doing this show. Like watching it today, listening to it today, like I was just so inspired and so grateful that this is out there, and you are the perfect person to send all this. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Beau. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye, everyone.